understandings and readings, and that is about, she says that as the sins of man increases, so does the disease of animals, and she says that there will be a time when it will not even be safe to even own these animals because they're going to be so diseased. And so, we have to take it all in context, and we can't just like make a doctrine out of one or two quotes. It just doesn't work like that, because all of a sudden things don't start to make sense, and then we get confused. So we have to look at the year in which she wrote it. We look to see what was the timeline, what was happening, where are we, in that progress right now. And she talks about wheat in here. And well, we know that wheat today is either genetically modified or has multiple hybridizations where our body doesn't even know how to even process it anymore. And so that is out of date. So if we're real critical, we're really critically trying to understand this, then we can use this as a really good reference book. But we have to know how to explain the things that don't make sense. Like the raw egg eggs are just filled with all sorts of stuff anymore. And the shells are so tiny, they're so thin, and chickens aren't being fed properly. And chickens out here are an exception, of course. They're actually eating grass, and they're wild, and they're just running around like chickens do, and that's what they're supposed to be. But then she also says that God will open up a time and a way as to when it will be time to give up those animal products. So when I look at the research from now till 100 years ago, I see that this time that God's people should have given up all animal products was 30 years ago. Because that's when the research really started to explode. That's when even like 20 years ago is when the fake meat started coming out, the fake cheeses, all these substitutes for meat and dairy, which was only supposed to be for a short time and allowed people, it was kind of like a stepping stone. We are to give up all unhealthful recipes, and that's our counsel. So take a broad view and a broad understanding of all this, and not make a doctrine, and not realize that this is the final destination. This is only the starting point. It's our springboard from where we start. And so it's not in this specific example, so it's in another one. But 241, and I want you to read this with a critical eye and really thinking about what's happening here. And I'm recommending that you read the first 4 chapters before you read the rest of the book, because the first 4 chapters are what really sets the stage for the rest of the book. And yet our people around the world have never read the first 4 chapters. They read like the second half of the book. The first half is more of a spiritual nature. It's the foundation of our health message. It's why we have health reform. Where does it relate to the third angel's message and our responsibility before God? And then the second half of the book is more of a physical benefits of the health message. So what to eat, what not to eat, and that's usually where people go. But I don't want you to go there right now. I really want you to understand why God gave us that health message. And so the first 4 chapters of this book is just absolutely invaluable. But this was one place that I wanted to share with you on 241. Temptations to the indulgence of appetite possesses a power which can be overcome only by the help that God can impart. But with every temptation we have the promise of God that there shall be a way of escape. Why then are so many overcome? It is because they do not put their trust in God. They do not avail themselves of the means provided for their safety. So when we read this book, because health reform is about me personally, and it's about you personally, and it's not about judging somebody or finger pointing or gossiping because they're a health reformer or they're eating meat or anything in between, we need to make this about me. And this is about you. So you need to stop, you need to retrain your mind to stop thinking about what other people are doing and not doing, and complaining about what everything, everyone else is doing. So this is how I want you to read it. When it says we, us, they, them, everybody, God's people, I want you to put your name in that instead, because it turns it into a real powerhouse. So let's go to the second sentence. But with every temptation, Dr. Janie has the promise of God that there shall be a way of escape. Why then does she overcome? Is she overcome? It is because Dr. Janie does not put her trust in God. Put your name in there now. You see how that totally changes it? So Dr. Janie does not avail herself of the means provided for her safety. The excuses she offers for the gratification of perverted appetite are therefore of no weight with God. You see how that becomes really powerful? Now all of a sudden, I don't feel like I have a right to finger point at anybody anymore. I don't want to be looking at what other people are doing, because I need to now be paying attention to what I'm doing. What's my duty before God? So when I put my name in there, it just changes everything. And that's what I want you to do too. So Daniel valued his human capabilities, but he did not trust in them. His trust was in that strength which God has promised to all who will come to him in humble dependence, relying wholly upon his power. And so he purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portions of the king meat, nor with the wine which he drank. That meat is food. So it doesn't just translate into flesh. It translates into food in general. For he knew that such a diet would not strengthen his physical powers or increase his mental capability. He would not use wine nor any other unnatural stimulant. He would do nothing to becloud his mind, and God gave him knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and also understanding in all visions and dreams. So this is where the things that I would be underlining some of these, because they speak to me. Because these are the words of power. It says that God, in that first paragraph, but with every temptation we have the promise of God that there shall be a way of escape. For me, I'd be circling that. I'd be underlining that, because we read that there's no excuse for any gratification of our perverted appetite. No excuse at all. We can stand before a holy God all we want and try to justify why we're eating what we're eating that he is forbidden of, because he says, eat this, but don't eat that. And we constantly are people constantly eating this, and yet we're told here that God will offer no excuse at all. So he purposed in his heart, because that there shall be a way of escape tells me that I can't pull the wool over God's eyes. And I can't pull the wool over, I may be able to pull it over my eyes, but I know if I like really gave something to God. And I shared my cheese testimony with you yesterday, right? That was a struggle. 1 year I struggled and struggled, but I purposed in my mind. So when I see that he purposed in his heart, I'm like, okay, that's what I need to do. That's part of my test of overcoming. How does that happen? It starts in our mind, with our thinking. It is saying that I must make that choice. I'm putting that line in the sand, and I will not go over it. Even if I have to struggle with the cheese addiction for every day for the rest of my life, I will not eat it. But see, God's not, at some point he will give it up. But see, for me, that was my test. That was a test for me that lasted 1 year, and I never gave in. And when I got that health pledge, and it took me to my knees, and I said, God, I promise I will never touch cheese again, even if I have to battle this for the rest of my life. See, that's purposing in our mind. And I mean, I'm no example to everybody, but I'm just giving examples of my own living faith, and I know that you guys all have your examples too. This is our battle. And I give these examples to encourage you, to tell you that this is a normal part of our walk. And God is not going to remove this battle from us. It is our ordained battle to fight. We must make a choice with every single meal, every single bite, and every single ingredient that's in everything that we eat. Everything. God will get us there. So we see the one thing that I wanted to show you in this was on 242. It says, what if Daniel and his companions had made a compromise with those heathen officers and had yielded to the pressure of the occasion by eating and drinking as was customary with the Babylonians? Look at that. That single incident of departure from principle would have weakened their sense of right and wrong and their abhorrence of wrong. I'm like, wow. I mean, it's like, you know, my jaw hits the floor. One instance, one time. And then that thought takes me back to the Garden of Eden, that we're in the mess today that we are because of one bite. One bite. And look at the mess we're in this world. So it does matter what we eat. And this, it's powerful. Indulgence of appetite would have involved the sacrifice of physical vigor, clearness of intellect, and spiritual power. One wrong step would have probably led to others until their connection with heaven being severed, they would have been swept away by temptation. Oh, wow. That's powerful. To me, this is like underlined. This is like explanation point. This is like a star in the margin. And this is because this is a step by, and they were willing to die for the health message. That means that's my struggle and your struggle too. We are not exempt from this. There was another place, but I don't see it at the moment. There's another place that talks about, I'll have to find it. All right, well, since we're already kind of started here, I'll just swap out. Tomorrow morning I will do, unless you want me to do spiritual feasting through either 42 for me. So it's paragraph, so number 564, with all the precious light that has continually been given to us in health publications, we cannot afford, so put your name in there, that Dr. Janie cannot afford to live careless, heedless lives, eating and drinking as she pleases. Put your name in there. and indulging in the use of stimulants, narcotics, and condiments. She puts condiments in with narcotics and stimulants. And yet, when we look at most refrigerators, and most people, at least in North America, what you see, it just fills the refrigerator with condiments. You have ketchup and mustard and pickles and the mayonnaise and barbecue sauce and all sorts of sauces and things that do us no good. Go to the last sentence in that paragraph. All this is ours. So put your name in here. Dr. Janie is being proved to see whether she will accept the principles of health reform or follow a course of self-indulgence. Put your name in there. So somebody else read this to me with your name. Read that with your name.
Benson, being proved to see whether Benson will accept the principles of health reform or follow a course of self-indulgence.
Yes. So that's the first principle that I want you to understand as you're reading this book. And that is, put your name in where it says we and us and they and God's people and everybody and all, and put your name in there. All right, so let's go to baking soda and baking powder. The use of soda or baking powder in bread making is harmful and unnecessary. So this takes me to the thought that God's people are to get rid of all unhealthful recipes. All. It doesn't say some or most, or once a year at Christmas time or Thanksgiving, you can, indulge in whatever the fare is for the day. That is not God's way, because we just read that in Daniel, had he justified one time of taking from the king's table, that it would have been a downward spiral for him. So soda causes inflammation of the stomach and often poisons the entire system. Many housewives think that they cannot make good bread without soda, but this is an error. If they would take the trouble to learn better methods, their bread would be more wholesome, and to a natural taste, it would be more palatable. Hot biscuits raised with soda or baking powder should never, this is a word that I circle because she says never. This is God saying it. This is the Holy Spirit guiding her to write what she's writing. And it says never. So we are told never to have anything with baking soda or baking powder should never appear on our table. Such compounds are unfit to enter the stomach. Hot raised bread of any kind is difficult of digestion. So I don't even use yeast anymore. I gave up yeast years ago. I use nothing that is raised in any way. So graham gems, which are both wholesome and palatable, may be made from the unbolted flour mixed with pure cold water and milk. Now, this is 1905 when this was written, so we know that this is a starting point for this book, and we are beyond the use of milk in this book. All of God's people, according to my research and understanding, should have given up all animal products 30 years ago. So we have to see that we're told that those who are waiting for the coming of the Lord, that they are eating fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, these things, and nowhere does it say that there is milk in there. There's no milk, there's no dairy at all, there's no meat listed in that, and we also don't see any animal products also in the Ark of the Covenant. We're talking about God has tried to move his people into a plant-based diet after the Exodus, when he's providing the manna. He shows that he is not happy with his people when they are grumbling for their flesh. And the first time he winked at, but the second time he did not. The first time they didn't know and didn't understand, the second time they should have. And they refused to tame their taste buds. So unbolted flour is fine. And what does that mean? So bolted flour is the very fine, the fine flour that's like powder. But unbolted would be more of a coarsely ground. So where you can actually see every piece of the corn or of the oat or whatever you're grinding, you should be able to see it, like how you see sand on a seashore, or you see the Himalayan salt. You see every single little grain. So that's what we're talking about. So unbolted flour actually is we should not be having fine flour. When we recommend graham gems, our friends say, oh yes, we know how to make them. We are much disappointed when they appear raised with baking powder or with sour milk or soda. These give no evidence of reform. The unbolted flour mixed with pure soft water and milk makes the best gems we ever tasted. We now have nut milk. And so you can just make a simple nut milk with like a third of a cup of nuts, of raw nuts, and about 4 cups of water, like 4 dates, and you whiz that up in your blender, and now you've got a whole plant milk. It's very simple. And so you can now use that kind of milk. And so we see if the water is hard, use more sweet milk or add an egg to the batter. Gems should be thoroughly baked in a well-heated oven with a steady fire. So like I said, this was written in 1905. We have to take all of the principles together. We can't just look at this and say that is our counsel right now. That was our counsel of where we started from 150 years ago. It's not where we should be today, 150 years later, when the health reform is a progressive message. And we see, so in my travels, I see entire families suffering with sickness in consequence of poor cooking. Sweet, nice, healthful bread is seldom seen upon the table. There's a wonderful quote that says that there's good religion in a good loaf of bread. But I say there's not a lot of good religion left anymore, and therefore there's not a lot of good bread left anymore, unless we're home making it. And then of course, then we can make it as we see fit. And then we're going down to 568. Some do not feel, Dr. Janey does not feel that is a religious duty to prepare food properly. Hence, she does not try to learn how. She lets the bread sour before baking, and the saleratus added to remedy the cook's carelessness makes it totally unfit for the human stomach. Now that leavening agent is consistent of potassium bicarbonate or sodium bicarbonate. And so people lets the bread say, well, my baking powder or baking soda doesn't have any aluminum in it. Then that's the problem. That's not the problem. It's actually what is it doing to our stomach, and what's it doing to our the pH of the acids in our stomach. So we see 569, we see sallow complexions and groaning dyspeptic wherever we go. When we sit at the tables and eat the food cooked in the same manner as it has been for months and perhaps years, I wonder that these persons are alive. Bread and biscuits are yellow with saleratus. This resort to saleratus was to save a little care. In consequence, of forgetfulness, the bread is often allowed to sour before baking, and to remedy the evil, a large portion of saleratus is added, which only makes it totally unfit for the human stomach. Saleratus in any form should not be introduced into the stomach, for its effect is fearful. No form at all. Doesn't matter what we're putting it in, baking powder, baking soda should not enter into our human stomach. It eats the coating of the stomach, causes inflammation, and frequently poisons the entire system. So this is our counsel again. We see then that never saleratus in any form should not be introduced into the stomach, for the effect is fearful. It's unfit for the human stomach. There's another place I want to turn you to, because this is a big misunderstanding, because everywhere I go people talk about it. And so I'm going to turn you to paragraph 614. The whole plant food that God wants us to have, but yet people come here and they try that God wants us to have, but yet people come here and they try to get oil, and it's okay. But remember, even if this was written and it is okay, we are still heading to the heavenly Canaan, where there's not going to be any processed foods. There was no processed food in the Garden of Eden, and there's not going to be any processed food in the new heaven and earth. So when properly prepared, olives, like nuts, supply the place of butter and flesh meats. The oil, as eaten in the olive, you catch that? As eaten in the olive, is far preferable to animal oil or fat. It serves as a laxative. It will be found beneficial to consumptives, and it is healing to an inflamed, irritated stomach. Olives may be so prepared as to be eaten with good results at every meal. The advantages sought by the use of butter may be obtained by the eating of properly prepared olives. The oil in the olives relieves constipation, and for consumptives and for those who have inflamed, irritated stomachs, it is better than any drug. As a food, it is better than any oil coming secondhand from animals. So we're talking about a whole food here. We're talking about eating the olive as a whole food. We're not talking about extracting it and then leaving the rest of it behind. And then the oil in olives is a remedy for constipation and kidney disease. So this is where people always try to justify eating oil. There is no oil in heaven. There's no oil in health reform, in the full health reform message. All right, so I want to take you back now to the first chapter. So go to paragraph number 1. Paragraph number 1. So paragraph 1, we're told only one lease of life is granted us. Second paragraph, our first duty. Doesn't say our second or one of our first duties. It says our first duty towards God and our fellow being is that of self-development. Okay, so what I want you to do now, so I've already shared how to put your name in these all or us or they or them or God's people. Put your name. That's the first thing. The second thing is whenever you come across a statement that is a salvational statement. I want you to underline it or highlight it, however you can get it recognizable. And then I want you to put a little S in the margin and put a circle around it, because that S then is a salvational statement. So put an S, and let me give you an example. Number 3. So number 3, the living organism is God's property. It belongs to Him by creation and by redemption and by a misuse of any of that you read as you're falling off to sleep, and then you find it on the floor in the morning after a good night's rest. This is not how I want you to read this book. I want you to read it with purpose, with prayer, with contemplation, asking yourself questions, putting your name in here so we can personalize this message to me, because I'm the one trying to make it to be the 144,000. You're the one trying to make it to be the 144,000. So this has to be personal to you, just like it has to be personal to me. There's room for all of us. There's no competing. It's not only the top 10% of the class gets to get to heaven. There's no competition. If all pass the test, then all get to go. And if none pass, then none go. But we do know that there's 144,000. And so that is an S, because that is a breaking of the 8th commandment. In number 4, the obligation Dr. Janie owes to God in presenting to Him a pure, healthy body is not comprehended. I don't comprehend it. That means that's a flashing red light, like, okay, so what is it that I need to now understand? What am I missing? And now I can take it to prayer and say, wow, Lord, what is this to me? And how does it apply to you? Because you're going to be asking in prayer about you, and I'm going to be asking in prayer about me. And when that glorious day comes, we're just going to meet each other in the clouds, and we're going to be hugging and say, I can't believe it, we made it. This is amazing. Heaven is cheap enough. Who cares what we have to give up? Who cares if I have to give up my meat and my dairy and my processed foods and my Twinkies and my Cadbury bars and my eggs, and who cares? I mean, really, who cares? I want to go to heaven. And we're just still wallowing, in the mud, and I can't overcome God, please help me. But we're just giving Him lip service, because we really don't want to overcome sometimes. But see, we can't kid God, and He knows whether we are truly striving or not. There are, number 5, second, a failure to care for the living machinery is an insult to the Creator. There are divinely appointed rules which, if observed, will keep human beings from disease and premature death. This is kind of what I was alluding to, but I knew I was going to read it later, so I didn't want to really get into it, because I actually wanted to read it to you, is number 6. One reason why we do not enjoy more of the blessing of the Lord is we do not heed the light. One reason Dr. Janie does not enjoy more of the blessing of the Lord is she does not heed the light which He has been pleased to give her in regard to the laws of life and health. It's like, wow, that's powerful. You guys get it? So if you don't have power in your life, look back in your life. Where did you depart from God? Where was He trying to take you to for whatever? He wanted you to do something and you wouldn't. He wanted you to stop doing something and He wanted you to do it. He may have wanted you to go somewhere. He may have wanted you to repent to Him or to apologize to somebody else, but pride and ego has prevented you from doing that. Or maybe He's been trying to deal with you with your diet on a particular food. Maybe He's trying to have you like something he wants you to like. And maybe he wants you, in your next step, is to not like the things that he doesn't want you to like. So look back in your history. If you don't have the power that you want, where did you depart from God? And so many times it is related to the obedience thing. It's because I didn't do what God asked me to do. We can see in number 8, first paragraph, well, there's only one paragraph, second sentence, every function is wonderfully and wisely made, and God pledged himself to keep this human machinery in healthful action if the human agent will only obey his laws and cooperate with God. So God pledges himself to keep Dr. Janie's human machinery in healthful action if I will only obey his laws and cooperate with God. Every law governing the human machinery is to be considered just as truly divine in origin, in character, and in importance as the Word of God. Every careless, this is a word I would be circling, it doesn't say most, it says every careless, inattentive action, any abuse, I'd be circling that word any, abuse put upon the Lord's wonderful mechanism is disregarding specified laws in the human habitation, is a violation of God's law. I'd be underlining that, and I'd be putting an S out in the paragraph there. That's a salvational statement. And in 9, it becomes even more clear. It is truly a sin to violate the law as it is to break the 10 commandments. That takes me right back to Genesis 2:16 and 17, where God commanded our diet. Eat this, don't eat that. You eat this, you live forever. You eat like that,